Hey, welcome back. This is Nobody Told Me with Mike Mylan and Blaine Birch. That's the guy right there. And today we're going to be talking about a confused mind never buys. That's right. I mean, if your customers don't know what you're talking about, they're not going to buy from you. Am I right?
No, absolutely. That's a cardinal sin to confuse them because then you're not getting anywhere with them. So,
Right.
hey, what are you drinking today?
You know what? I'm moving my way around the state. I am with Four Corners Brewery. There we go, Four Corners
Okay.
Brewery. And they're out of Dallas, Texas. And I'm doing a very powerful India Pale Ale called El Chingon. So, hey, if you notice,
Nice.
hoppy, you don't put a big hop on there unless there's a lot of hops in it, and there definitely is. So, if you want a great taste, a great strong IPA, there it is.
Nice. Nice. And I have got from a brewery out of Calgary, Alberta. So it's one of our provincial breweries, S'more Stout. And they say
Woo.
it's from a dark series. So I guess they have a series of darker beers. And S'more Stout, it's from a brewery called Born in Colorado from Calgary. So I'm just assuming the
Uh-huh.
founder was born in Colorado.
Yeah.
Who's the guess there? But it's a really nice dark stout here. So
Well, and I went right to when it said s'more stout. I went right to a fire. We're going into fall. I think it's a great, great beer of choice. Good job.
it's a perfect day. It's kind of windy, a bit cool. And I was like, oh, it's a great day for a stout. And this is a really nice stout. So I'm quite pleased that I picked this one today.
All right. So, what do you call cool? It's 90 degrees in San Antonio, Texas. So, what's cool to you?
Oh man, I got to do the Fahrenheit conversion. I didn't even look at the number today. It's probably like 55 or 60. I'm guessing somewhere in there. So it's not like that. It's not like frigid or super cold, but it's cooler than it has been, and it's and really windy. So it just, but the leaves are actually starting to change color here, so that shows you how early our fall comes. So
And you're in a great spot where you can see all of that change, right? I mean, there's
yeah.
a lot of foliage up there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, and the river valley will in town here will be just beautiful. Like it'll just turn all orange and a little bit of reds and all that, and it'll be stunning for about a day, and then like one big wind will come through and blow the leaves off, and then everyone has to rake for the next week. So that's pretty much where we're headed.
Okay, so I'm talking about a confused mind never buys, and this has been a huge challenge in my software career because we were always on the cutting edge of what was happening. We'll say banking and analysis, and data integration. So it was always an education process on top
Yeah,
of it. And if you weren't succinct, if you didn't have 15 seconds down to say we're this, because everybody wants to put you in a bucket. If
yeah,
you can't figure out your bucket, it's a hard slog, right? I mean, it's a
yes,
hard, very hard uphill battle for you. So
yeah,
I know at Finnegraph, and we're talking now 2012, we were doing analysis that people were doing by hand, but the regular people weren't doing it. Just the bankers, just the investors, not regular folks, right? Not
yeah,
doing this type of investment. And we had the additional thing of we're going to connect to your accounting system and pull data and do it for you. That was a huge undertaking. Like, what do you mean you're going
yeah.
to look at our accounting system? So it took us a long time to figure out how to get people comfortable with both sets and the language just right. Have you
Yeah.
experienced things like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're experiencing it right now because we're like our primary market is the accounting profession, but we're there to help them move away from traditional tax and compliance. So this is kind of new frontier. This is still early late adopters that are moving to advisory, moving to offering essentially fractional CFO services. And so we're coming in and saying, hey, you're using a bunch of these different tools. It's super slow, and what you're delivering to your clients, they don't understand anyway. Well, we're going to save you 80% of your time, and we're going to deliver stuff that your clients love. And that equips you to offer these services to your clients. But this is new. So it's the exact same thing that you're talking about as we're doing a ton of education, and simple is hard. Like that's one of the things we found, we simplify the message, we try and distill it right down, and then you find out Oh, there's still too much. There's still too much. We got to go up. And it's here, paint the picture. It has to be aspirational. It's got to get them in the frame of mind. And then you start moving down into the details. Simple is hard. People think simple is like, oh, it's so simple. That's what's hard. Making something simple is hard. Complicated stuff, super easy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's exactly right. So I always go to, the people I think did it best, right? If you go to apartments.com, first of all, in their domain, you're like, well, I'm looking for an apartment. It's there. But their tagline says, this is the place you find a place. I'm like going, why can't I figure out something like that? Apartments.com, the place you find a place. And that's what I'm talking about. That is still, I mean, instantly you're in the box, you know why you're there. So everything you see kind of matches with what you expect.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And in the places that you and I have been, it's not something people do all the time. And they're only looking for it when they specifically need it. Right.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to quickly put them in that box. Oh, I'm looking for this, maybe cash flow management, maybe it's analysis, maybe it's collaboration.
Yeah. And it's like we cover, it's a little bit of a holistic suite, which makes it kind of tricky because you're like, hey, we're like we kind of say sometimes like a CFO platform, monitor, manage, model, like the 3 M's. I don't go into our branding side, but it's topical. And what we found is we sometimes would make it down to sound too transactional, right? Like it's cash management. Well, it's actually a really tiny part and it might hook them in, but it doesn't tell you, hey, we're this day-to-day operations. Like you're using this every day. Simple is hard. And I had a contact of mine. I kind of explained what we were doing. This was a few weeks ago. And he said, okay, so manage today and plan for tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Well, that's going on our website. Thanks for that. Because sometimes when it's your internal, and we talk about this as our team a lot of times, it's like, no, that's our wants, not our customers' wants. It's internal conversation, right?
Are you guys using that?
Yeah, it's on our website right now. And I don't know if we'll stick with it or not, but it was better than what we had. And it was in a way we couldn't get out of our own way. And as I explained it, and someone from the outside just like, and I was like, well, I'm grabbing that. And he's like, yeah, for sure. Use it. Like, but it took that outside view because you just get into the weeds, right? You just get into the weeds and it's hard to get out.
But one of the biggest battles we had internally at Finnegraph was what to name our cash flow product. Right. And I went back to, this confused mind never buys. And I'm saying, why do you go to freecredit.com? You know exactly what it is, right? It's freecredit.com. Why do you go to pets.com? Why do you go, you know what you're getting. So I'm like, why not just try to do something that simple and just say, we're going to call it cashflowtool.com and here it is. So, but you can't believe how much pushback internally that I got. And I had to stick with my guns. I'm like going, find something better. I mean, find something that says exactly what we are. Yeah. That succinctly, that easily, right?
Yeah. Well, and it took me, I don't know how long to come up with the name Dry Run. And it was all about, like, back then, even like when we were naming it, I was thinking, okay, it's like, it's all about the future. You're predicting, but you sort of try it out before you do it for real. That was kind of like test it out before you do it for real. And it came down, and Dry Run is like, well, that's what it is. But it took a long time to get down to that point and focus into something so simple, right? It's so hard to get. It's a hard task, and talking without people outside and getting those opinions actually can help quite a bit. We talk about that quite often, and this is a great, I think, a terrific tip is, find out how are your customers talking about you. What words, like I'm talking exactly what words do they use. Yes. And so if we have it in a recording or something like, oh, they said this, write it out, put it on the web, exact wording, put it in the ad, their exact words, let them speak for you. And it's a massive advantage to do that.
I totally agree, right? I've even used little focus groups like going, here, I'm just going to show you this. I'm not going to tell you what it does. What do you think it does? Just show them a picture and kind of explain, well, you enter in numbers here and you get this result.
Yeah.
and then let them describe it to you, and it gives you a different sense, because you and I probably are like, when I'm in that product meeting every day or every week, I get just lost in it, right? I get lost in it. I can't see outside of what I already think it is. And then on top of it, on top of it, because I can't see outside of it, I fall back on words I don't like. I don't like to use all the industry, buzzwords, right? I don't like to use, collaboration. I don't like to use, what are some of the other ones that are out there that people use? I mean, all the time. I'm like, man, I hate that. I just don't want to use that word.
Yeah. And because you start to fall into the pool with everybody else, right? And so often the words, especially if they sound complicated, they're coming from internal ideas and internal jargon. And the worst thing you can do, because I've seen it before, and you've seen, I guarantee you get to a site and you look, there's 10 really big words in a row, and I have no clue. And you can just tell that they're trying to sound, they're worried they're going to sound dumb, so they want to sound sophisticated. It's the classic petroleum engineer for the guy that's filling your car with gas, right? Like you want to add this flavor to it or whatever, and you just confuse people.
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly right. And one of the simplest words that everyone uses that I'm always suspicious of, one now, and then I don't even know exactly what that means, when people say, "Oh, it's more efficient."
Faster.
Yeah, I mean, more efficient. Okay, well, why is that important? I mean, do I really need something that's more efficient? Do I, it just seems like that translation gets lost, because everyone uses it. Everyone says, "Oh, our stuff is more efficient. You'll be more efficient." I get lost with that word, and it's a turnoff to me now.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, because I think we've probably used it here and there. But it's just,
so have I, because sometimes you can't come up with a better word. You're like, no, more efficient.
It's such a balancing act of like, you don't want to be too abstract or too vague, and sometimes you can do that if you come up with a really fun like punchline, but is it really effective? And then like explaining with pure clarity, that sometimes can actually like pigeonhole you too much, because it's not aspirational. So this stuff is hard. It's hard to get that balance, and it's trying to figure out kind of what's your main hook, what's your main slogan, what are all these sub messages, what are these things that people are looking for? You can pull them in, but that's not that they can't replace your sort of your main message and what you're about. It's hard, and it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time, and it evolves over time. Like we're constantly evolving this. We look back a year ago and, well, we tried that confused people this way. We did this, it confused people that way. It's not a good thing.
Well, that's why, over time, I wasn't like this in the beginning, but over time now, I start everything with two parts. Who are we talking to? Right. And what's the problem?
Yeah.
And I try to keep it there. Like, going, okay, if we're going to talk about solving a problem, because most people that get on the internet are trying to solve a problem. I don't care if I'm, planting a bush. Is this the right bush? Will these leaves kill my dog? I mean, I look at stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I want to know that type of information, because I'm trying to figure out an answer to a problem in most cases.
Yeah.
So that's where I try to focus is, okay, I want to talk to accountants. I want to talk to bankers. I want to talk to business owners, and they all have this problem with this information.
Yeah.
Right. So I start there, but even me describing it is too many words.
Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you condense it down to where I know what you're talking about instantly?
Yeah. And it is, I think a lot of it is talk with your customers, talk with your team, and take the time and really like put an effort in. It's not going to probably be the first blush. But the other thing too is, it's not just wording that confuses people. Like we talk all the time about, how do we smooth out our onboarding? how do we smooth out our sales process? How do we make it easy for them? How do we, like, there's multiple places where a customer can get confused and just walk away, like add in that sort of friction, you know.
As soon as I tell myself, what do I do next? I quit. With any app, I'm like, what do I do next? I don't know. Then I quit.
Gone. Yeah. Yeah. I was looking up, so I'm going to make some pickles because we grew a bunch of peppers. So after this, pop upstairs, I'm going to make these. I'm going to pickle some peppers. And so I was looking for a recipe. And
You're gonna be
I'll tell you. Yeah, exactly. And it's, so I'm looking up these recipes, and I'll tell you, and it's not necessarily a confusing thing, but it kind of is you get to a recipe and you click on, I'm like, I just want to know how you make pickles. Right. And these pages all have like this long drawn out awful. So I only get through the first sentence. I'm like, it was a really nice summer day. And I'm like, oh my God. And then you're scanning through the page and there's ads and all this stuff. And the confusing part is I'm just trying to find this recipe because that's the only thing I want. Like if I ever find a site where you click there and it's like the top, this is a recipe. It's like those guys will make $1 billion. Just put one ad right beside the recipe. It drives me nuts. And the confusing part is you're not confused by the content in a way. What you're trying to do is figure out where the heck is the stuff that actually matters to me.
That's right.
And so, I bet you I bailed on 4 or 5 pages. They may have had the best recipe. I bailed on because I'm like, where is it? Where? Screw it. On to the next one. Where is it? Where? Screw it. On to the next one. So I'm like, here, I can see at least the ingredients and figure it out. Right.
Huh. All right. So that's interesting. You said a couple of different things there that you're like, hey, just give me the stuff that matters.
Yeah.
And too often what happens, and I've been guilty of it, is that I give you all the context around why this is important. When you already kind of know that, you just want to know how to do it, And so I think that's right. Highlight that, bring that to the forefront. I'm looking for this. Well, there it is. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for what we do. We're dry run. We do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I think a couple of episodes ago, I mentioned a formula that I use is I help these people in this situation, by doing this, right? And I think that's kind of how I try to simplify it. That's not necessarily what I put in the website, but it helps me clarify the problem. I help small business owners who want to know more about, their financial situation, if they can work with a bank by giving them software and education to help them understand it. That's how I try to make it simple.
Yeah.
That doesn't always get you a sale, but at least it puts you in a box.
Yeah, it gets them in the right frame of mind. They at least know what the context is, where they're at, and it is such a challenge, but it's a difference between a sale and no sale. It's a difference between unlocking like rapid growth. If you have a good product, you have a good service. If you'll lose people on the process and make it like all that friction, everything, unlocking that simple messaging and simple process, and they understand what to do and a simple way to buy, it'll absolutely make you money, but it's not easy to do and it can't be overlooked. Like I'm sure you've read a lot of the same articles I've had where you see small changes in an e-commerce site in how they buy something. If they get confused, they don't, well, is that the price? Did it ship? Is shipping included? All these little things. And you just get drop off at every little step. And once you kind of smooth that out and they know where they're at, suddenly they're going through in much larger numbers, and it can make a massive difference on your bottom line.
It does. I mean, and again, that's why you put all of the funnel pieces together, because you know exactly. And I tell you what, I just learned a pretty cool viral coefficient formula. I learned it yesterday.
Okay. Yeah.
And it was the guy that helped build Gusto's lead generation program. And he called it the PIC formula, PIC, which was P would be like the percentage of users that are going to share, right? Because he's building a referral partner type program. So it's the percentage of people that will actually share your message. And then the I is the number of invitations that user would send. And then the C would be conversions off of it. Yeah. And the higher the number per message, right? So he's putting a PIC score to every single message, and he could determine which ones were more valuable or better, had better results than others. I'm like, going, well, that's kind of interesting. But the way he broke it down was, okay, if 5 people share it to 5 other people, and I get this many conversions, he knows the scalability of that particular program.
Yeah.
So, but there was a couple other things that popped out to me. I'm like, oh, wait a second. If I know that the average person shares it with 5 other people, then my scalability is a multiple of 5. So every one person I bring on that will do something, it's 5x, right? So, and then you can adjust and focus in on, I want them to share better, or my message is wrong because the conversions aren't right, or my message to the referrer isn't right because they're not getting enough conversions, right? So it was a really cool, simple way to evaluate every message that goes out. I thought was really cool.
That speaks to a lot, not just if your customer's confused, but if you're confused on something, if your staff is confused on something, it's really going to affect you downstream, because if it's not simple for them, they're not going to know how to explain it. If the metrics, like talking like simple metrics like that, if you've really made it so complicated and they don't really understand it, probably won't know where to intervene to try and improve it. So confused mind never buys, but it's like a confused team can't sell. It's probably the other thing.
A great second half. A great second half. Yeah. All right. So if you remember, I think another couple episodes ago, I talked to you about how I had to market the bars and restaurants that I had. Mm-hmm. Right. There was a difference. One of the decisions we made, and this goes back to simplicity. It goes back to, I'm going to call it this way. Setting the expectation helps eliminate the confusion.
Yep.
Which means I answered the question, am I a bar with a restaurant or a restaurant with a bar? Because you as the consumer have a different expectation based on what I told you we were.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
If I pretend I'm a restaurant, you come in and go, no, this is a dive bar.
Yeah.
So, you won't stay as long because you were expecting something else.
And this flows into some of the other conversations we've had, where that's where really knowing your niche, really gaining a strong focus, that's how you win. And this is a great example of trying to be everything to everyone is going to confuse everyone, because you're going to be nothing to everybody. Like they just aren't going to understand. And so that's one of the most powerful things. And I think you mentioned it before, is really identifying like who's your customer and what are you doing for them, but being ultra disciplined on that and knowing like where is your niche, because you start, it just feels like, oh, it's such a big group. If we just sell to everybody, we could be a bar and, we could have a kids area, so that doesn't make sense, right? Like it has to be focused, right?
But you've never been to a bar or restaurant in Texas. There'll be slides outside. There'll be a bar up front.
Well, you know what? That's kind of funny, because it actually probably blends, but they know who their customer is then, right? It's like, we're going to go for people that have kids that want to have a beer. That's really good.
Exactly right. We're going to put football on every screen in here, and we're going to let you play in the sandbox.
Yeah. Nice.
I mean, how interesting is that? I mean, so when you focus down, here's where I've known and I've learned over time. I used to think I was a great salesperson because I could find a workaround. Oh, yeah. I mean, we don't do exactly what you say, but we can do it, blah, blah, blah. And I'll come up with 3 or 4 different steps to make it appear the same.
Yeah.
And now I've got a different vision about that, which is if I have to do workarounds, you're not the right customer, or I don't have the right product.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? It's really about, and it's something we're always talking about and struggle with at times of qualifying the customers. And it's hard sometimes to go like, how tight do you qualify? Because you need growth, you need revenue coming in. Some of them that might be a little outside the lines are still going to be successful, but really you have to find those ones that are going to be really successful and really happy. And it's about qualifying them, but that still comes down to having this really solid understanding of this is what we are, this is who we sell to, and this is how we help them. And if it's a little bit outside, it might be, maybe for them it's later or maybe never, but being disciplined with that.
Well, and I think your data will be really skewed if you get the wrong people at the top of the funnel.
Yeah.
And I think about that because of when I was listening to the guy from Gusto, he says what we were doing is we were asking people to connect their contacts, like Gmail or LinkedIn or whoever. I mean, it's part of the onboarding process. They say, hey, let's Gusto is better with friends, those type of things. Same thing Facebook did, same thing LinkedIn did. It's better with friends. Let's invite all your friends, right? And then they go out and they grab your contact list and they go, oh, well, here's all the people not on Facebook or not on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Well, that didn't work for Gusto because not everybody needs a payroll processing company, right? If my grandma's in my contact list, she's not a payroll. I mean, so you get all this garbage at the top of the funnel, but they're like going, oh, it came from Mike. I'll click on it and try whatever. So you're getting all these metrics, but the conversions go tank. Like, oh no, I don't need payroll processing. Why would he give that to me?
Yeah. And it reminds me of that when I look at like LinkedIn and Facebook and that you can do these lookalike lists. So you can say, okay, here's my client list, make a lookalike list.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I'm pretty skeptical because I'm like, what exactly are they doing to see if we're alike? And like for us, it's like, okay, all these people are in Edmonton. I don't care. Like we sell globally. So how do they know what attribute to weigh the most for what we need it for? Because I don't think we tell them. I might be totally off on that, but it reminds me a little bit of that of if you end up with the wrong list, it might sound great, but it could get you nowhere, right?
Well, here's one of the things I did like about like the Facebook filters, and maybe not necessarily lookalike list, but let's say you were going to niche down. You're like going, I want to know dentist, right? I want to sell right to dentist, and here we go. Well, the thing is, most people don't put their profession on there.
Yeah.
Right? So how do I know if they're a dentist? Well, there's other filters like, well, what school did they go to? Oh, they went to Harvard School of Dentistry.
Yeah.
What? Okay, well, I can find you in other things. You're a member of this association. Remember, you're doing these things that dentists do, and I can put you in a bucket. And I'm like going, that's pretty powerful, right?
Yeah.
Now, with a lookalike audience, you might get dentists that were born in 1970 that Sam Cooke as a musical artist or something like that. I guess that's how it works.
And like those like that sort of filtering was so powerful, but now that sort of filtering seems to be going away because of that people are concerned about privacy issues, and they'll say, hey, can we, basically, will you share some attributes about yourself so we can send you related things? And virtually everybody says no. And and I by habit, I probably do too. Nope. And then of course I get no ads that are related whatsoever to me. Where kind of looking back, kind of like, well, it'd probably be kind of handy if I actually, got something that was interesting to me. But it's sort of that default. And so it gets even harder to get to people. I know it's kind of getting off topic here, but it is kind of harder and to get to people. And that's, I suppose actually it isn't, because if I'm not seeing ads that are related to me, it's like, I'm not going to buy. It's like, that has nothing to do with me. It's, so how do you get the right message in front of the right people at the right time? That's such a challenge.
Well, and this is off topic. We should have an episode on this, but my problem with that type of marketing, he's interested in this, is that sometimes if I buy it once, I don't need it again.
Oh yeah. Oh, and they show it forever. Yeah.
Yeah. If I buy a vacuum cleaner today, probably won't buy another one for a few years. You don't need to keep selling me ads about vacuum cleaners.
Yeah, and it's you. They should have a button that says, "I bought this." I bought this, and then they could say, "Well, maybe he needs a broom or whatever." Right? Like, there's probably something related.
Yeah, that's right. People that buy vacuum cleaners also buy pet spotting equipment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Who knows? So that's kind of crazy. So let's talk about being confused. All right. So if you got just a few minutes, I'll tell you how I came up with the restaurant versus bar versus restaurant analogy.
Okay.
And it was right here in San Antonio. And there's a highly rated Italian restaurant on the Riverwalk, right, which is kind of a big touristy area. So I went down there, right? I went down there. I'm like, yeah, I want to go. So I had this image in my mind, Italian restaurant, what type of music should be in there, what the lighting should look like, what the decor should look like. So I've got an image in my head, but I walk in and it is darkly, dimly lit. There is some figs and ivy and stuff like that around. It's the tan rust, what's that called? Ruspin? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. The colors are right? It feels like an Italian restaurant. But the noise coming out was not the music I thought I would hear, three tenor style or something like that. It was hard jazz, not jazz that you would like, jazz that hurts your ears. It's like going, what? I don't want to hear this, right? It's the jazz I don't like.
Yeah.
So I go in, and then on the walls, I'm expecting some type of Italian, decor, and that's not there either. They're all these. It's the same artist on all parts of the walls, and you can buy the art, and it's like the black velvet paintings that you've seen where you got dogs playing poker and all that, but they weren't. They were all one theme, and the theme was a person doing something normal, washing dishes, hanging clothes, washing a car or whatever. And then in some part of the picture was a clown like peeking around a tree or peeking through the window like this. I mean, absolutely ridiculous, right? I'm like, why is that in there? So I've got those two things, right? So I ordered wine. We ordered some wine, and it didn't come in a carafe. It didn't come in, we ordered a bottle. You know how they put the thing by your table with the chiller where you can chill your wine. It didn't come like that. It came in, and I'm not gonna lie, a milk jug, right? It came in, it's like, why did this come in a milk jug? Yeah. And they didn't serve it in a wine glass. They served it in a rocks glass, like you would get a Manhattan out of, So I'm like going, man, I'm really confused on how these people operate. Food was fantastic. Music was too loud. It was whatever. And it stopped. I'm like, oh, this is going to be great. We could finish our dinner. It's going to be fine. No, they had one more surprise for me, a belly dancer. Came out from behind, went all around, cling, 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 all around the restaurant. And that's how we finished our night, was with a belly dancer. So that's a confused mind. So, but I'm like going, wait a second, if you're going to really confuse somebody, give them something to talk about.
Yeah.
Because this happened like 8 years ago, and I'm still talking about how odd it was.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and the amazing thing is, like, if the food wasn't good, it'd be like an absolute train wreck. At least if the food is good, like, okay, at least I got something. But that just feels like when you have independent businesses, and you sometimes see that with business owners, they have to be focused on their client, and they have to be just relentlessly focused on their clients, right? And what happens is when their likes or passion starts to creep in, and you just feel like saying to them, nobody cares. Like, they don't care if you like jazz, make it comfortable for your customer.
That's right.
They don't care if you thought you saw in a magazine that people are now drinking wine out of a tumbler glass. No, give them a nice wine glass. That's about those are big risks to take, and to take them, risk your business on, either because you just don't really care, which doesn't sound like it if they have really good food, and they seem to put a lot into it. It just was weird. So
it was just a weird experience, but weird enough for me to remember it and then use it in, Right. So, but all right, well, think about it this way. It seems like we keep landing on, right? You got to know your customer, and then you got to know what they're looking for, or what problem they have, or how you can help them in some way. How do you do that, right? How do you kind of know your customer? I mean, is that do you choose that as a business owner, or does the market choose you?
Well, I think you you do your best prediction, but I know like for us, we've done some massive changes on who we're targeting, what where we're good, where we've really solved a need, all of this stuff, right? You learn by, of course, talking with your customers, talking, but you also learn by data and trying to figure out like, well, what are they doing? What are they doing en masse? What are they doing? Which ones are highly successful? That's sometimes, we look at customers. If a customer ever leaves us, you're like, oh, let's do like almost like the forensic on them to figure out why would they ever leave us,
Yeah.
but sometimes I think we spend more time worried about the ones that leave instead of, well, what about the ones that have been with us for years and are ridiculously successful? Let's learn more about them. Let's figure out what it is about them that makes us the perfect fit for them. But I think you have to be obsessed with your customer. And I think too often it's so easy to do is to start, well, we would really like to do this or know this or have the, it's not about us. We really have to be focused on that client and that customer and how do we make their lives better, because they're the ultimate decider with their money, right?
And I totally agree with you. And I've been down the long path of that. I think my customer is this. I try to build a product for that person and end up, a little bit off.
Yeah.
Such as we started in banks, but most of our customers came from the accounting channel, right? So I mean, at one point in time, so I'm like going, what can you do to shortcut that?
Yeah, and it's so tricky. They always talk about, product market fit. And what it isn't is really forcing the people that you think are going to be your customers to really like what you do. So often it's, oh, we built something, but the market is actually a few degrees off where we're at. Sometimes, let's pivot. Sometimes it's like 180 degrees off.
Yeah.
Boy, it's you have to test fast. You have to, like they always say, fail fast, but it's not even really necessarily a failure in that sense. You want to be able to rapidly find out where do you fit in the world and how do you find that customer that's like seems to be the perfect fit, and then how do you evolve your messaging and your product and everything to meet their needs. And that's quite a humbling experience, especially as in innovation, when you think you're building something for X and it turns out you're selling to Y, right? Like it's a really, you have to be open to it.
I totally agree. And then it could be that you do all these focus groups up front. What do you want? I want to sell to you. I understand your group. I'm a business owner. You're a business owner. So I feel like I could build something for us.
Yeah.
But then it turns out the accountants want it. So I wonder if there's more time that somebody could spend up front. Not too much, because then it cuts into your development dollars, right? Of building a product or building a service. There's got to be a better way of determining those needs, and nobody's doing a good job at it.
Yeah, and like I think like lean startup methodology is and some of the like agile and all those things you talk about all the time, they help. They're trying to solve that problem of not building some massive thing and it's like, if I build it, they'll come idea. It's about trying to get information and trying to find out before you even build something with a low tech mock-up. Are they going to kind of like it? A mock-up, it doesn't have to do anything. It can literally be like a quick Photoshop mock-up and just get some feedback. You can learn a ton from that. It's humbling, and it takes a lot of discipline, but boy, the worst thing is building some big, massive components and just nobody cares. Right.
Yeah. Right. That's a horrible feeling. So
I gotta tell you what story, because this is a great example. It still kind of bugs me, but it's not as bad as your restaurant story, but it still bugs me after a while here. There's a restaurant not too far from us. And it's an Italian place, and they do have really good food. And they have this like wine coolers that are full of every bloody, like just everything. And they get the wine menu, and they got like so much stuff, so much choice. And, and then we went in there and I'm like, I feel like a glass of wine. What's on your beer menu?
Yeah.
And 5 pretty crappy beers, just crap. Right. And we went there, kind of a few times, and the manager noticed us because it's not far away. And the manager noticed us and said, "Oh, you guys are back." And I said, "Yeah, I got to tell you though, like your beer menu is awful."
Mm.
And I said, like you put so much care into your food, obviously so much care into your wine, and your beer menu is like from the football game. Like it is awful. And on top of it, you're a local kind of small business. You want to appeal to small businesses. Why don't you have we have local beer, local craft that's really terrific. Why aren't you serving them? Support them if you want them to support you. And he looked a little shocked. And then he just said, well, it had to do with, again, like their internal ordering processes, and they use these guys. And so we just get crap kind of thing. And I just, kind of like, why would I care? Like, I don't care about your internal processes that are making you apparently buy really crappy product, because I'll go to our favorite place, which is a little bit longer drive, not that much further. And I know they care because they have great wine and they have great beer menu and they have great like coffee and they got great food and everything's homemade. And it's like they go that one extra step. And so I'll drive much further to get to them. And I found it so off-putting that, hey, I'm kind of telling you this, and I'm probably not the only one that's thinking this. And it was just kind of like, whatever.
Well, that's surprising to hear that, because again, I own 3 bar restaurants, and I dealt with 3 or 4 different liquor vendors. Right, they brought in different things. You have to, because one vendor sells Jack Daniels and another one sells Tito's vodka, whatever. So, but it's one of those things. I'm going, I could say, hey, when this runs out, replace it with this. That was the process, right? My customers are asking for blah, bring that in.
Yeah. And unfortunately it's not the only, like there's a high-end restaurant in our area. Because now that you mentioned it, I realize it's the same thing. They've got very high-end food. It's not an Italian restaurant. It's very high-end food, high-end wine. We've gone there a couple of times because they have a little, like their bar, it's really beautiful looking place. And they have the happy hour in there and their beer is ass. And I just look at it and go, what it says to me is you guys don't care. And that to me, like, it puts a damper on everything, because you should care. You should care about all of it, right? Like our favorite restaurant, Rosso Pizzeria, you guys, if you're in Edmonton, it's amazing. Like even we go for brunch, they even make homemade ketchup. They make their own like salsa for one of their dishes. They make their own pepper jelly. They make every single thing, and it's unbelievable. And it shows that they care, because everything is quality. It's not, well, we'll go up to this line and then, I don't care. Right.
But what you're describing is they're getting the product right. Right. They got the product right. And I think it all starts there. I mean, even in software, if you have a terrible product or a mediocre product, the message isn't going to make it better.
Not going to fix it. No,
it's not going to fix it. So, I mean, it's got to start with having, a good first-class experience. That doesn't mean perfect. That doesn't mean it solves everybody's problem all the time. That just means, hey, it does what we say it does.
Yeah. There's a great example of the flip side of simple, but incredibly effective. There's a brewery in Edmonton called Odd Company. I think I probably had their beer on a few weeks ago. And we went there one day, and they have like almost no food. They got a chicken burger, a burger, cheesies, and a pretzel. I think that's literally their entire menu, right?
What's a cheesy?
A cheesy is like a cheese puff. You guys don't have cheesies? They're not
cheese curd.
No, they're like little, almost like a popcorn puff that's bright orange. It's like orange styrofoam, right?
Like Cheetos or cheese puff.
Like Cheetos, yeah. So I guess this is the Canadian version of a Cheeto. But they have like probably good ones or whatever. But we went in there and for whatever reason, I just was craving a chicken burger that night, which is weird, right? So I grab a chicken burger. My wife grabs this beef burger, and I eat my chicken burger. And she says, I don't want to share this, but you have to taste this. So I take the burger. I take a bite. I handed it back to her, got up, walked in and bought a beef burger. And I've already eaten an entire burger. I do not do that, but this burger was that good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So their menu has like 4 things on it, and they got some really nice beer too. You can't believe how many people I've told about that burger in town. Like, best burger in Edmonton. In fact, I think it's the best burger I've had in Phoenix, Scottsdale, everything. Is like, it's a brewery. That's almost the only food they have. That is the best burger. And I keep telling people because it's so good and it's so simple, right?
But they're not confusing you. They say, hey, we got this many beers, this many pieces of food. That's what you get. And you expect that when you walk in.
Yeah, exactly. Like you sit down and it's people with their beer and just burger after burger coming out. So I'm not the only one. Like, people realize, like, that's good stuff. And the place fills up, and it's one simple, really good thing. And that's the other thing is, they're not confused by going in and having a friend of mine told me one time, I remember he goes, if I go to a restaurant and they have like more than 7 or 8 things on the menu, I'm like, it's probably not very good. That was because you can't be good at that many things. You get a book for a menu, you're not going to be good at all that. No. Like, just having 5 things.
Unless it's the same ingredients, just mixed differently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like Olive Garden.
Yeah.
It's like they have like 5 ingredients. You just say, hey, which order do you want them in?
Just the color, little food coloring, mix it up.
So that's interesting. All right, so I've messed up in the past on pricing. Pricing was always difficult for me, right? And especially when it comes to not just tiered pricing, what you get for what do I price per user, per company file, per block of people. But then what happens if I have a partner program where you're referring it in? How do I pay you? It gets very complicated, and that's where you have to keep it simple. People want to be involved.
Simple, but it has to be right. And you know what? We'll touch on this, but I think that might be our next topic. We've been talking about that for about 2 weeks in the office here, and I was lucky enough to talk with a pricing expert a couple of weeks ago, and we can do an entire episode on pricing because it's that involved, and it is so incredibly important. And the basics for so many software companies, the adage of, well, just like, you're not, just double it, just double it, see what happens, because people generally underprice so badly on so many things.
Hey, can you see that I'm sweating?
Was it hot in there?
All right, remember I said it was 90. All right, so here's a plug or not a plug for Nest. All right, so I use Nest in the house, but then I connected Nest to CPS, which is the power company here in San Antonio. And if you do that, and they can control the flow of energy during what they call energy rush hours, they'll give you a credit on your bill. Yeah. Well, we're in an energy rush hour until 5:30. That means really that they're going to raise the temperature of your house. So I'm like, I'm sitting here comfortable all day long. And all of a sudden I'm in a rush hour between 4:30 and 5:30, where they take it up to 80 something degrees, and I'm sitting in here sweating. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like uncomfortable. So
that's just like, oh man, thank God I'm saving 38 cents.
That's absolutely crazy. I'm like I'm sitting here sweating trying to do a podcast.
I've used the Ecobee. In Arizona, we have the Ecobee, which is like a Nest, but it's actually a Canadian company, so I had to pick them. But the one thing I won't do is I'm like, no, I'll just tell you what a temperature I want, despite all the fancy stuff. I'll tell you, right?
One thing I like about Nest is they got this away feature where, it's because it's connected to your phone. When you leave the house, it knows and it'll raise it to, just turn off air conditioner on. And then when you come back, it kicks it all back on for you.
Yeah.
Right,
that probably wouldn't work if I left the house. My wife's in here and all of a sudden the heat's going through the roof or something. But,
so I think the pricing is an important thing that we should tackle, right? Because it's a craziness. First of all, identifying the cost, because sometimes you'll go out the door with a great price, but you're losing money every time you sell one.
Well, yeah, like there's profitability comes into it, but there's also the point where if you price too low, you're not going to sell. Like you sell fewer fewer items when you're underpriced. And then as the price goes up, then you start, we'll do a whole show on this, because this is actually a good topic. I've been a little bit obsessed with it lately. So.
Well, and yeah, I think so. I mean, and then how do you come up with incentive programs for sharing? Like, Uber went, hey, give 10, get 10. It was a great promotion, right?
Yeah.
You get $10 in your account when you give somebody a free ride, or $10 in their account.
Yeah.
Like, how do you come up with something that simple, so succinct, that it doesn't confuse people? PayPal did the same thing. It was like 5 and 5.
Yeah.
You open a PayPal account, we'll give you $5 in your account. When your friend opens his, we'll give him $5.
Yeah.
I mean, people get it instantly.
Right? Yeah. That's super clear.
Not confusing people.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, that we could actually explore that as a topic too, is basically referral channels and sort of viral marketing. And like, that's another whole area that's really meaty to dig into. And it all is based on this idea of, keep it simple, don't confuse your customer. But you can get into these little sections in here, and it's like, how do you unpack all of these different places? How do you keep it simple in your pricing, in your referrals, everything, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So it sounds like, I mean, if we're talking about being succinct, being simple, being not confused,
yeah,
what's the best example you've seen of that?
Oh, that's
and I put you on the spot. Normally don't do that.
put me on the spot. Jeremy's going to kill me for saying this, but the one thing, like this one brand line that I thought was so good is the ultimate driving machine for BMW. BMW.
And he doesn't like BMW.
No, he calls me an asshole pretty much daily but cause I've test drove everything on the planet, and it drives different. And so it was one of those things that is what they were, that was what they're known for. And they're kind of saying like, look, you can look to Volvo for safety, the Mercedes for luxury. This is what we're about. And then it's almost like their product roadmap and everything is based on that. Right. Yeah. And that was just one that sort of popped into my mind, because it's so clear, and it's like lasted for decades. They maybe have tweaked it a bit, but basically like that's the core of it. It's lasted for decades, and it's a guiding principle for the business, for the product, for what customers are looking for. Right.
Yeah. Hey, have you been confused then by somebody, a company? You're like, I don't know what you do.
Oh, that probably happens more often than not. Like, you just like, I don't get it. And the worst offenders oftentimes are these sort of small, medium-sized businesses. And they'll build a website, and it's like they took their internal manual and just like puked it onto the screen. You're like, I don't understand. What do you, I'm looking for a plumber. Like, can you help me with this? I don't understand what you're talking about. So unfortunately, it's nothing pops into my mind immediately, except that I know it's like, that's a frequent problem. It's hard to do simple. And so too often small, medium-sized businesses, they struggle mightily with it, because I don't think they dedicate the time, the energy. They don't know how important it is. And a lot of times they don't bring in help to figure out, how do we simplify our message? How do we really focus what we're doing? Like a great example actually is the odd time, like I'll look on like Uber Eats or something, and we're going to order something. Oh, there's a new restaurant there. I haven't seen them before. And then you look at their menu, and it's like, oh yeah, this looks interesting. It's like, it's like Northern Chinese. Oh, okay, that's gonna be great. It's gonna be like spicy. I love spice. I kind of know what it is. And then all of a sudden you're going down, and all of a sudden it's like hamburger and fries, pizza. Like, wait a minute, this is and so immediately they think they're serving more people. And I look and go, no, I'm out. Like, I am out. That does not tell me that you guys really are confident in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's Northern Iowa Chinese. You got the burgers, you got the other stuff.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. How about you? Like, what's confused you the most?
Part of it is when I'm looking at what's in the landscape from a SaaS perspective, the software as a service. I mean, the way people name their product. I mean, I always, we talk about this in an episode, naming it to something that I can connect to pretty quickly.
Yeah.
helps. It just helps me understand a lot better, a lot quicker. But some of the,
Yeah.
I mean, and I love the product and I love the people over there, but giraffe, I don't connect that to financial analysis at all. And not,
No, it's yeah.
and not giraffe like the animal, is giraffe like JIRVA or AV or something like that.
Yeah. And that's another, like, there's a lot of issues of can, like, does it sound like something, but can you spell it? Like the
Yeah.
worst thing you can do with your company so often is you've got a really recognizable word or two words, but you spell it weirdly.
Yeah.
Again, probably because they want to get the domain name and all that. And like that was so important to me when, as I was naming Dry Run, is to come up with something that's forward looking and planning, but it's 6 letters and I can spell it. And dryrun.com is like, that is like, man, they can spell it, right? It was so important.
And it connects to what you can do.
Yeah, exactly.
We're doing a dry run. We're just doing dry run.
Yeah, and that was a really hard one to come up with, and like one that I don't want to throw anyone under the bus here, but when Receipt Bank, which is like maintains all your receipts, changed their name to Dext, and I have trouble remembering.
Yeah,
I don't know. I never, well, you probably know what happened there. I didn't even know what happened there. I just know that like their name was really clear, and now I don't even really get it. But maybe there's an angle to it. But
great example. That's a great example. So, all right. So you and I were coming up the top of the hour. A confused mind never buys. And what I keep saying, and maybe you agree, don't agree, is that who am I talking to? How am I helping them? If you can answer those questions, I think you can eliminate the confusion. And don't use words that people don't understand.
Yeah. Like you're, when you look at those things and you really care about your customer, but simplify the language. Like it never is going to benefit you to make it sound complicated. Like, don't worry about sounding too simple to someone. Like I'm talking with CFOs every other day, and I'm always like, well, we call it the 3 M's: monitor, manage, model. And they go, yeah, I totally get it. Yeah. If I wanted to sound like, oh, I'm talking to a CFO, well, you're going to mitigate the risk of the da-da-da. And they're going to just like shut you. They're going to turn off their brain and like, yeah, whatever. I'll go for coffee. Right.
It's funny. All right. So, hey, we just tackled in an hour, a confused mind never buys. And I want people to walk away with, hey, I've got to build a message that most people can get very quickly. What I do, how do I help them? So, Blaine,
yeah,
another great episode, buddy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, lots of fun. I'm looking forward to the next one, man.
All right. So don't forget to go to YouTube, put in your comments, put in your, well, I don't care. Even if you didn't like the fact I was sweating today on camera, and you can thank Google for that. but one of those things, or the fact that I'm too cheap to not turn off the rush hour setting. But let us know what you think. I mean, let us know that we're doing something that you like, that you don't like. I mean, either way, we're okay with it. But I'm telling you, we're in episode number 13, and I like it. I dig it. I like what we're doing. You?
I've had a ton of fun. Lucky number 13, and I love promoting these little breweries again. Born Colorado, Calgary. Check these guys out.
Yeah, right on. And hey, there we go. Four Corners Brewery up in Dallas, Texas. So I'm going to run out of these things at some point in time. I'm going to have to break the borders.
You're gonna have to move past. Well, you go to Arizona, and I can recommend some, but you'll have to break the borders at some point. I've mixed a bit. I've stayed mostly in Canada, mostly in Alberta, almost all Canada, but I love these little breweries everywhere. Like you can go to any town in probably almost on the planet now, and find these little businesses where people are really passionate about what they're doing. So I love to support them.
You can. All right. So hey, this was Nobody Told Me with Mike and Blaine, and we're going to see you next time.